Temperature readings, peeing on countless sticks, monitors, cervical mucus, shots, probes, peeing in little plastic cups, counting days, sex that feels forced or even mechanical. For 1 in 8 women, these things have become the norm. The shame that surrounds couples struggling with infertility, though silent, can feel deafening. It's the constant carry of the one thing you don't want to think about which now dominates your mind, and the struggle to silence that inner voice, always whispering that there is something wrong with you. For this special coffee talk, I asked my dear friend and Jersey Belle co-star Danielle Yancey to come sit down with me, so thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
On the show, you talked about your struggle with infertility. So I would like, explain to me when you first heard sort of the term infertility.
So this has been a long struggle. It hasn't been just that one season of the show. The show only showed just a little bit of what we have dealt with. And this has been going on for probably 6 years, maybe even longer. So when I first heard the term infertility, it was probably, I can remember being at my doctor's appointment, and I asked Bart to come, and he came with me, which is nice that he would even come to the appointment with me. And you know, the doctor said, "How long have y'all been trying?" Because we had tried on our own, and we really had no clue what we were doing.
How long had you been trying up until that point?
Probably 6 months to a year.
Okay.
And so at the doctor's appointment, he, you know, asked how long we had been trying, and okay, well, here's our next step, and this, you know, I may refer you to a fertility doctor. And so that's when the term started rising up, and I started hearing it more. And you know, the doctor was, my gynecologist was giving us more in-depth, you know, details on what to do and how to do things and when to do it, and you know, and let's start with a temperature, you know, test and all of that. And it started becoming extremely overwhelming. And
a lot of people say that when they first hear the term infertility, everything about trying to have a baby becomes extremely mechanical. It feels forced.
Mm-hmm. It's very unnatural.
Tell me what it does to the dynamic between you and your husband at that point.
Oh, it completely, you know, you have to be in the right mindset. You know, it's like, okay, day 12 to 20, you know, it's like,
right.
This is when you have to have sex every other day, or, you know, from, oh, you know, taking ovulation tests, and, you know, being very stressed out about organizing yourself every month to figure out the day and the time and the when and the where, and oh, is my husband going to be traveling? Bart, where are you going to be this week? Can you make it home? You know, it's just like all of these things had to line up to work. And the whole idea of us becoming mechanical, yeah, it becomes like a job. You're thinking about it, and you're kind of more stressed out about versus, you know, having fun your first few years of marriage, you know, like those type of things. But you know, we had been married at that point, you know, 6 years, but still, the whole idea of you've got to be here, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you know, I need you here, Bart, or I need to go to the doctor's office, or, you know, it all became very mechanical.
When you take control of a situation like that, because I would imagine that a woman who hears that it's not going to be easy, immediately, like you said, buys the sticks, buys the, you know, the thermometer, gets everything she needs, because we are that way. We want to control the situation and go like, okay, I can, oh, is that all I need to do? I just need to take my, you know, I need to work a little harder,
yeah, but
that's not a problem for me. At what point in the process do you start to feel, or is there a part of the process where you start to feel embarrassed or shameful with your own spouse about the situation?
Right, so after that initial appointment with my gynecologist, and he said, you know, I think I'm going to refer you to a fertility specialist. So that started overwhelming me a little bit. I think, and the fact that I felt like I wasn't doing, my body wasn't working right for me. So we go see the fertility specialist, and he said, oh, I just want to try some things naturally for the next 3 months, and then we'll go to the next step. But first I want to make sure y'all are doing this at the right time, and all of that. And we're going to send you home with the temperature charts and all of that. And being in that doctor's office for the first time was so scary, so emotional, and thinking, we're here because of me, and Bart hasn't been tested yet, but I don't think it's him. So, at some point he does get tested, it's not him. So it is me. So you do feel like you're not sufficient. You're not enough. You're in the marriage, you're not doing your job.
So at that time when you are sort of accepting that this has become your new norm, this is your journey, are you talking to people about it yet?
I don't think I was talking, I'm trying to remember back because it's been 6 years. So at that time, I think I was keeping it to myself. Not really telling a lot of people because I didn't know how long this journey would be. So that was just my first initial part of it.
A few months and we'll be pregnant, no one will have to know.
I was like, we're really serious now. We just went to this doctor, so we'll be pregnant within the next few months.
Couple months.
No big deal. So 3 months down the road, we're still not pregnant. And, I haven't told anybody really because it's a little, you don't know if anybody else is struggling with that, and you don't know what everybody else has. A lot of people that have children have struggled with this and, just didn't tell anybody, so there was nobody to bounce back off of, any circumstances, or I didn't have any examples to go by. So, later down the road I found out, oh, so-and-so had 3 miscarriages before they were able to have a successful pregnancy and all of this. So, things started coming out, and I was able to,
1 in 8 women struggle with some sort of infertility throughout their journey in their childbearing years.
Right.
And really, the truth is that because there is sex involved, it makes the conversation more uncomfortable for people who are modest. Mm-hmm. Acknowledging that you're struggling with infertility opens the conversation for people to ask, well, what are you doing? What are you trying? Are you having enough sex? And all of a sudden it becomes extremely prying.
Very private. Yeah.
Yes, and for somebody like me who wears my heart on my sleeve, I don't think that I would have an issue talking about that, but for somebody like you who prefers to not discuss your married sex life with people, although I do discuss it with you regardless, I could imagine that people starting to question your sexual habits with your husband becomes a little intrusive. The other thing that I wanted to ask you that I personally want to know, and I know a lot of people watching who are supporting and loving sisters, daughters, aunts, friends going through this, before we get back to your journey, is how can we support you? I will admit something to you. I said it on the show and I will say it again. I feel a lot of times guilty complaining about my kids or inviting you to things where I know everybody coming is bringing their children. I feel like it's magnified in your face that this is your struggle and not ours. But I try to rationalize it with Danielle doesn't want to be left out. She wants to feel included. So I always invite you, but I would be lying if I said that sometimes I didn't feel guilty. I do sometimes feel guilty, and I'm not expecting you to relieve that of me, but maybe you can shed some insight to people on how we can be supportive.
Absolutely. Just going back to when we were first struggling, and all of my friends were having babies or multiple babies at the time, so it was kind of like a little dagger in the heart.
And be honest about that, because people need to hear that. It's
Yeah.
normal to feel
It is.
frustrated when it's happening for everybody else.
Yeah, it's like a dagger, and it did hurt. However, I'm not going to sit around and mope all the time and feel sorry for myself, and I don't have kids, so I'm going to get out there. I want to go to my friends after they've had babies in the hospital, and I want to go see them, and I want to congratulate them still. I want to go to their kids' birthday parties, and I want to be there for them because they're still my friends. It doesn't matter if I have kids or don't have kids. I still want a big part of your life. And you know, it does help when my friends ask, you know, how's everything going? You know, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, you know, especially on days when things aren't going well or whatever. But still having my friends there for me and, you know, asking about my doctor's appointments or what's going on now. Or
So it's okay to ask, to
Absolutely.
flat out ask you
for me, yes.
how it's going.
You know, there's some days I'm like, oh, I just don't want to talk about this because actually I just don't want to think about it.
Right.
You know, I don't even want to go there. Some days, some months, I don't even want to talk about it or think about it. It's just, you know, it's overwhelming and it's a lot. But, you know, at the end of the day, when my friends are talking to me, kind of helps pull some things out because I rarely do talk about this. It's just not something I just go out and, even though I know I've said it on TV and I've said it, you know, here and there, but it's just not something I talk about every day. But it does help when my friends bring it up and speak to me and how's it going, and, you know, and it also helps with a few people that I know that have gone through it and actually speaking to them.
At some point, have you had the opportunity to silence the voice in your mind that tells you that there is something wrong with you?
Yeah, honestly, I still struggle with that, and I do feel like there is something wrong with me, and there is, and there's some obvious medical issues that have come up over the years that they found that that is a problem. So, yeah, I mean, every day I think about how can I fix that? Can I be healthier? You know that.
You cannot be healthier. You are
yes, I can.
No, Danielle, I know you, sidebar, you cannot be healthier short of surviving on oxygen. You are at your healthiest. If it was a simple fix as far as like eating the right foods or drinking the right teas, you would have a slew of babies by now. I don't know if something that feels biological, like the want or desire to reproduce, I don't know that that ever goes away. But you are 38. Yes, you will be 39.
I will be 39 soon. Yes.
And sooner than later it will get to a place where biologically having children would become, you know, more troublesome than it would have if you were 30 going through this. You have been very honest about not wanting medical intervention in way of drugs, shots, things like that. Will you talk to me a little bit about why you won't, at this point, knowing that you're, you know, a year away from that big 4-0 where they say that having children, you know, you shouldn't have children after 40.
Yeah.
Though I will acknowledge that many women do, medically they say after that it's riskier. At this point, it's sort of that do or die moment. Why would you not try the intervention?
Well, I did try that, and I did try multiple things. So it's not like I haven't tried it. It's just I'm at this point where I don't know if trying it anymore will do much more help. So when I went to my first fertility doctor here, this was 5 years ago, I guess, we first started on the fertility drug Clomid. And that was after the few months.
Clomid, it must be very popular because even women who don't have infertility issues are familiar with Clomid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even I've heard that. That
Right.
Clomid, I believe, stimulates your ovaries to make more eggs or
Right.
release more eggs,
Exactly.
right?
So, and I knew immediately so after a few months at my first fertility doctor's appointment, you know, he let us try. Okay, y'all haven't gotten pregnant on your own. Okay, our next step is this. Well, the first was the surgeries, and that's a whole nother story. So surgeries, you know, laparoscopy, hysteroscopy, everything. So you go through all of that, and you come out of the surgery, and then you start trying again. So we're going to try Clomid first. So the Clomid, we did that for 3 months. We did artificial insemination for 3 months.
You did?
It did not work.
You never told me that.
I thought we had talked about this.
No.
Yeah. So for some reason, Clomid for my body did the exact opposite thing. So my numbers were so low, instead of it being really high and ovulating more, I wasn't, and I was actually, before taking the medicine, I was doing this, like during the blood test and all that, he was showing that I was fine, but we're going to help stimulate you even more by taking this. So I took that, and it did the exact opposite, and he said, this drug is not working for you. So our next step is, you know, we're going to do these shots, and that became overwhelming to me. And a friend of mine had given me information about acupuncture. And so...
You really are Charlotte from Sex and the City. In every way.
When I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to give that a try. I want to give it a try. And at that moment in time also, so not only that, not everything is like perfect either. So you have to take that into consideration too. So my cycle was 46 days. You know, it was not a perfect 28-day cycle.
What are you on right now? Cycle day what?
Oh, wow. It's over 6 months. So I know that that's 180 days or something. I don't even know. So when you're going through this, and you've got to be at the doctor, you know, every month after you start your period, and get blood work drawn, and mine's not starting on time, so that draws out the process even longer. So you're not in the doctor's office like every 28 days. Mine was like all across the board, so it was hard to like gauge when to go, you know, when I finally go in, when am I ovulating, when do we try. So everything was extremely hard. And so I was like, I'm going to try acupuncture to try to get my cycle, you know, back in line. And I did. It started, after that, it was like, bingo, 30 days. Bingo, 28 days. It was like amazing. And I still praise acupuncture because it's so good for your body. So that was helping me regulate my cycles. And we were trying to, and I was doing Chinese herbs. I mean, name it. Then I started getting into all the organic and really getting into, you know, really, you know, fine, you know, really.
Because if there was something on the internet that said it worked for someone, if somebody omitted raspberries from their life and they got pregnant, Danielle then made the announcement, the sweeping announcement, that she was no longer consuming raspberries. And I have been through this with her long enough to have seen many food groups come and go. And
I can name quite a few.
you know, and I think that when you are at a place of, let's call it what it is, desperation, you will cling on to the success story of anybody because you desperately, if it worked for them, it can work for me. I want to ask you something that I was nervous to ask you, but I think that I was reading a lot about infertility and people were saying this is one of the toughest questions or statements that women who struggle with this get. And I wanted to know sort of if you could address it for people who hear this. You are a believer in God, yes?
Absolutely.
Amen, hallelujah. And there are people who have written to me about infertility who say, that people say, if it's God's will, it will be for you. Mm-hmm. And I think that they mean well. but they don't realize the weight, the impact of a statement like that. As if it doesn't happen, then what? You're not in God, you don't walk in God's favor? Has anyone ever said anything like that to you, or have you ever?
Yeah. I mean, multiple times. I mean, it's in God's hands. It's in, you know, God has a plan, and I totally believe that. I'm not, you know, I do question God sometimes, and I think that's a normal thing for a believer.
Yes.
So I'm not saying I never question God, because I do. And I think He likes that. I think He wants you talking to Him. So with that said, people say that to me, and I take it with a grain of salt because I know it's true. But it is hard some days to say, oh, well, God has a plan for me, but, you know, today I'm really struggling. And, you know, it's hard. You know, there's good days and bad days. And, but yeah, I mean,
I just think people need to be mindful of the whole, you know, God has a plan, because the implication, as I said, is that if it isn't happening, that somehow that is not God's plan for you, or you are not walking in God's favor. And I am here to tell you that you walk closer to God's favor than most people I know. So I will be very mindful to never say that to you.
Well, it's always good to hear that God's there for you, and it's in God's will, it's in God's hands, it's definitely in God's plan. I've had so many blessings in my life. I know He's there. He's not forgetting me. But it is hard to remember that all the time.